Alright guys, today we got a 2016 Genesis 5.0. The motor is locked up. So the owner drove the car into a puddle of water and hydrolocked the motor. And I think it has a couple of broken pistons inside. It's the bottom of the oil pan right here. So I'm gonna be showing you how to remove the motor out of the 5.0 V8 Genesis. This is the new motor right here. It's a pretty big motor. It's really hard to remove. So we're gonna attempt to remove the motor without dropping the subframe. Because as you can see, the subframe is very complex. Got your starter right here. Two 14mm bolts right there, and then another one on top right there. And then this is the wire for it, and this is the plug for the starter. Sits right there. And for this, you need a 10mm. It's a 10mm nut. But now the starter's stuck. You can't really remove it without removing the engine mount back there. So I'm gonna show you all the tricks that I learned to be able to do this job a lot quicker. Stay tuned. Push those mounts over to the side and you'll get that out of the way. Like I was saying, this engine mount right here bolts on right there. You can see the bolts. That's the bottom bolt, that's the top bolt. And there's another two on the top right here, and then another two on the bottom. So you just gotta move that out the way. And then this is the mount itself. That's the mounting bracket. And then this is the mount itself. It has three 14mm bolts. Okay? You can see right there. There's three of them. And then it has one nut on the top, or one bolt actually on the top, that holds the bracket to the mount. So remove that and then just push this engine mount and the bracket to the side, and then you'd be able to slide the starter out just right through here. And then this is how the starter looks like. This is how the starter looks like right here. And so the starter sits in like this, okay? So it sits in like this actually. So in order to get to this bolt, this little clip, you gotta push your fingers all the way to the top. That's where the clip is, and then just pry it out. So that's how you remove a starter on a Genesis V8 model. Stay tuned and I'll show you how to remove an engine. Transmission has two bolts on the top of the housing, and then two on the side right here, two more on the side right here, and then three on the bottom. So all these bottom ones are really easy to get to. The two hardest ones are on the top, and I'll show you how to do that later. And then another tip is these fuel lines. If you want to remove these fuel lines, all you have to do is just get a little pry tool and then push in on this like this, and then pry this out. Disconnect the fuel line. That's how you disconnect the fuel line. So that's how you remove. Those are the transmission bolts. And then you're gonna come over here and remove these exhaust brackets that bolt on right here. Just set like that. So 14mm bolt, and then just slide that over, and then there's another one on this side right here. Just slide it over out the way, And then obviously you're gonna have to disconnect your starter. And if you want to watch that video of how to disconnect that, I have that video on there. So disconnect your starter. You're gonna unbolt the engine mounts on both sides. Same video on the starter that will show you how to unbolt this engine mount. And then there's another one on that side. And then unbolt the exhaust manifold. 2 bolts right here on each side. Another 2 bolts right there. And then, alright guys, so those 2 transmission bolts that we were talking about, the only way that you can get to it without dropping the transmission is by removing the intake. And the intake has a whole bunch of 12mm bolts that are just all around the side right here. And then there's one 10mm bolt that's bolted on right here in the back of the intake. So once you guys disconnect the intake, you can see all the studs right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each side. 5 studs. Once you disconnect all 5 of those nuts, you can remove the intake. And then, like I said, there's a 10mm bolt that's behind the wire harness over here. Remove that, and you're gonna have to come and unplug these 2 plugs. Like lift up the intake a little bit and then push it back just a little bit to be able to unplug these 2 plugs. And then unplug this plug from the back of the intake. And then these are the 2 last plugs that are on the intake. Unplug those 2, and then there's a number 10 bolt. But you could get the intake all the way out until here, so you'll be able to reach that plug pretty easily. And then the intake will be removed, and then you'd be able to see the 2 10mm bolts. I mean the 2 17mm bolts on this side and this side, which is on the top of the transmission housing. And once you do that, you could hook up the engine over here, and then there's another point over there, and just hoist it up. Make sure you disconnect the radiator fan. You should have enough clearance to just lift it out of here. You might have to disconnect the hood, disconnect the shocks, and just lift it up a little bit higher. Let's go get some food.
Traction's off. You can take me down this death fucking street right here?
Yeah, man.
This is my death right here. Like taking it over to Grand Canyon, man.
What's that Suburban gonna do?
Just fucking ram them, dude. You're in a more expensive car.
Yeah.
I think it's split It's got some torque. Well, look at you. Check engine lights out.
Oh, that's nothing.
Put some tape over that.
Yeah, exactly. That's nothing.
What's in the trunk?
The battery.
It's a fucking body. See what I mean? Dude, they got all this fancy shit, and then they got this fucking... Yeah. It's pretty quick. This is a $19,000 car.
Yeah.
How much did this guy pick it up for?
I don't know. How much is it on the head?
It was underwater?
No, it wasn't on the water.
Oh.
Dude, he drove in the puddle of water.
Dude. Bro, you smoking, dude.
Yeah, I know. The exhaust has a, what's it called? It has some